Good morning, everyone. We will now call this meeting to order, but before we start, I would like to welcome three new committee members. Mr. Price and I are joined by our colleagues Bob Blumenfield, Paul Koretz, and David Rue. Welcome to the committee. It's an exciting first committee of the new session. This is declared a special meeting of the Arts, Parks, and River Committee only because the full schedule of committee meetings have not been adopted by the full City Council, because this is our regular meeting time. It'll be the first and third Mondays of each month. And with that, I would like to get this meeting started. What I'd like to request, colleagues, as I see there are no public comment cards at this time, I'd like to take items 3 and 5 on consent, if there are no objections. Items 3 and 5. Seeing as there are no objections, we will move the items on consent. And at this time, I would like to go to item 1. Mr. Blaine, please read the item.
Item number 1, Department of Recreation and Parks report relative to the National Recreation and Park Association 2015 Out-of-School Time Program Grant and the 2015 Summer Lunch Program.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Sofia Pena-Cortez, and I'm the superintendent for the Department of Recreation and Parks, and I'd just like to share with you some exciting news about our summer lunch program and our second grant as well. So the Summer Food Service Program is a federally funded program by the United States Department of Agriculture, and it is operated by the Department of Education. So each year, the department submits a grant for the summer lunch program, and we have been doing this since 1975, so if you do the math, we've been serving lunches now for 40 years. And the program offers free summer lunches for over 100 recreation and parks facilities during the time that LAUSD is out of school. All the sites are drop-in sites, and the meals are available to all the children in that area. There are no requirements. They don't have to sign in. They just have to be 18 years of age and under. The summers are the lunches are nutritious and well-balanced meals, and they meet the federal meal plan. On average, we serve 5,000 meals a day. For the course of 10 weeks, we serve approximately 200,000 meals during the summertime. So that's a blessing to all those children that don't get to eat. And so per the LAUSD guidelines, sponsors as RAP do not have to use a competitive bidding process when using school-funded authorities as food vendors. So for the last 2 years, we've been using LAUSD as our food vendor, and to date, we've had a great working relationship with them. They are providing lunches that meet the city's good food purchasing policy, no trans fat policy, and the City of LA child nutrition policy. So in a nutshell, these policies promote good food that are healthier, affordable, fair, and sustainable. The second grant is an NRPA out-of-school time program, and it's what we use to implement healthy eating and an education component for the summer lunch program. So the first program is federally funded. The second grant is private funded. It's from NRPA, and NRPA actually notifies us electronically. So last year we applied for a grant for $25,000, which we were awarded, and we used that to promote and to supplement the program. So our staff went out to have some training and in Washington, and then they do what we call train the trainer. So they come back and they use a tool called the Organ Wise Guy doll. So it's a doll that has all the different organs inside of it, with the heart and the liver, the lungs, the muscles, and everything. And they teach the kids how and what type of foods are good for them and what it does to the different parts of their bodies. And then they also promote fitness programs for them, and that's what that second grant is used. This year we were notified that we were going to get a continual program grant for $10,000. So we were awarded that, and we are implementing that program as well.
Terrific. Ms. Pena-Cortez, a couple of things. So we have nearly 200,000 meals served per summer. Is that
That's
inaccurate?
correct.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And so This is something that is, I think we enlarged this program last summer with that new partnership with LAUSD. Not necessarily a new partnership, but a newly envisioned partnership where we brought the healthy meals. I would say that it was a wildly successful start to that improved relationship.
All those staffers as myself, that as a child went out to get those lunches and stuff, when we actually served the lunches, the campers, the staffers, everybody that was involved in the program saw the quality of food that had changed, and really a lot of more fresh fruits and vegetables, and no chocolate milk. The kids wanted chocolate milk and chips and cookies. They didn't get any of that stuff, but we got a lot of healthier foods.
And with the vast majority of our children in LAUSD schools receiving food subsidies, this is such a vital bridge so that the healthy meals don't go away the second school ends. It just continues through the summer in our recreation and parks facilities, so it's a wonderful thing. So my question is, the reimbursement from 2014 is $900,000. It's slightly less for 2015. How?
There was an increase in the price of the meal, so by 10 cents from last year to this year, and 40 cents from the prior year. So that kind of cuts into the reimbursement and every year it's a little bit different.
Will we be able to keep the same number of meals going?
Yes.
Even though we have some budgetary challenges? Okay, terrific. And what are the basic requirements for this grant? Some of the basic requirements. Do we need to address any additional issues? Are we good? We're good. Since we've gone to the Healthy Meals program, we meet every.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So they have some basic guidelines for all of them, and so again, a certain percentage of the meals have to be fruit, vegetables, protein or whatever. So the portion controls on there we meet, and so long as we're serving those type of lunches, and LAUSD is what I call the food guru. So they actually are very stringent about the type of foods and meals that they serve the kids. And so that's why I think that we saw better quality as opposed to the vendors that we're using prior.
A couple more questions. To your knowledge, does LAUSD, do they use GMOs in any of their food product? Are you aware?
No.
Something we could request of them just to, I think, it'd be nice to have the information.
Okay.
And then lastly, for me, and then we'll open it up to my colleagues, can you provide, maybe it's in the report, so forgive me if it is, a list of the parks facilities?
Actually, I have a copy here. If you want, I can give it to the board secretary.
Terrific.
I brought that with anticipating that you would ask that question.
That would be great, because chances are there are some facilities in neighborhoods of need that may not yet be on there, so we can take a look at, working on additional funding so we can grow the program in more parks facilities in the coming years.
I'll be happy to provide that to you.
Terrific. Colleagues? Mr. Bloom, we'll start with Mr. Blumenfield, and we'll work our way this way.
Okay. A while ago, I remember an issue about leftover lunches. Are you able to use the leftover lunches for afternoon snacks, or if they're leftover past that, give them to shelters, or what happens with the leftovers?
Okay, so we do have a requirement to make sure that we do all of the counting for first lunches served, and then we also have second lunches. So usually we don't have leftover lunches because we're able to serve the second lunches. However, when the children don't want food that is served in the meal, we do provide a goodie box, and so they're able to then have that as a snack throughout the day.
Great, so you are able to use that. I remember a number of years ago that was
an issue, right?
An issue about that, but that's been all resolved.
Well, you can't take the lunches home, and before you couldn't divide the lunches up, but now because we have the goodie boxes, you can put the food in there, and the kids are able to. But anything that's left over in those boxes, then we have to discard.
There's no way.
No, because we don't want to jeopardize the program for all the other sites. And that's one of the requirements of policy from the LA the Agriculture and the Department of Education.
So does a lot of food end up getting, wasted that might be able to have gone to a shelter or something to that effect? Is there any is there any other way to approach
We've
that?
tried, but they don't allow that. They don't let the food go out.
And this is, they is the LAUSD?
No, it's
The
the
federal grant program?
actual grant itself. Mhm.
And then how, the locations, I know we're going to get a copy of them. How do you actually go about the process of adding or removing a park facility from that list?
We focus on the inner city facilities, so we have about 140 facilities in our inventory that qualify, and about 100, and it fluctuates from 100 to 104 facilities. So we can add if there's a request. However, I think that the list is pretty healthy.
So the actual process for adding,
Just ask.
we just ask and then it goes through the regular process. And are there criteria for?
Well, again, the focus is for inner city, lower income communities.
Okay, but it's not a formula or anything like that. It's just the focus.
They have to be in an area where there's a school that has the reduced lunches or the free meals, that the school qualifies for that, so they do have to be in that area.
Although that's pretty much every inch of the city. I can't imagine there's very few places in the city that don't have a
Right.
school with free and reduced lunches, and with 104 rec and park facilities, it's obviously not touching all of those areas.
Again, if you're interested in your district, just let us know.
Yeah, no, it's not just, I'm not thinking of a particular park, and I'm really not trying to cause trouble on it. I'm just trying to understand the process, and then maybe you would get interested in a park. I'm sure there's great reasons for all. I'm not questioning the parks that are there. I'm just sort of trying to understand, because it obviously is a selection, because we have a very big city, and just trying to figure out how it works.
Councilman, I'll just try to help a little bit. Kevin Regan, Assistant General Manager with Rec and Park. So when the list was established and when new facilities are looked at, we use federal guidelines for low to moderate income levels. So that's the check and balance. And also, that's the standard. And also to add facilities, we would either have to delete or have additional funding. I mean, obviously. So those are the two criteria. We can't add without having additional funding for the facility. And we have to look at facilities that meet the federal guidelines for, with their census tract data, that they're within low to moderate income levels.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Stop causing trouble, Bob. Just Mr. Price.
This is a great program. I'm interested and anxious to see the actual list, because that's kind of really. And we're just only dealing with parks, and this is only for kids, right? So it's not senior centers. That's another program.
This is for children under the age of 18.
And are we collaborating with the schools, or the schools are just a guide to where we're providing services around, or what's the connection with the school district?
So what used to happen in years past is that the Department of Recreation and Parks provided this program primarily as a component of the summer day camp. So in those areas where the summer lunch was provided, we would make it kind of a component of the day camp to save parents money and also get the children a nutritious meal at the midday. So recently, within the last couple of years, we've actually shifted beyond just partnering with LAUSD to actually having them be the lunch provider. So we used to contract with private companies to do the service, and now LAUSD themselves is actually the provider of the service. So they come onto the park and they provide the lunches. Of course, we pay them, but that's our new agreement.
And when does the program start? What's the length of it?
The actual dates?
Yes.
Do you want to give the dates?
It's June 8th through August 14th.
And it's usually the same time that the schools are out at LAUSD, so depending on their vacation time is the time that we serve.
And to be eligible, they just have to show up? They got to bring a water bill, or just...
Just
They
they're
just
the
have
hungry
to show up.
bodies.
hungry?
So the interesting thing is that while it used to be part of the summer day camp, and the kids were enrolled in camp for the most part, but it's open to any child, and we actually market that at the facility. So the child does not have to be enrolled in the summer day camp. They can just come on to the park at the appropriate time and pick up their lunch and be supervised
So if
and
somebody
eat it.
picked up, so they come with the parent,
Well-
they pick it up and they leave?
Well, actually, no, when I meant to pick it up, I meant that I kind of misspoke. They eat it. They have to pick it up and eat it there. They can't take the lunches home. There's strict guidelines about the food accountability, so we count very closely, make sure that we know what the numbers are going to be at each park to make sure that there's enough food for the kids, but we
Well,
also
other
don't
times
waste it.
that one kid is walking, the other one's in the stroller. I mean, they get 2 lunches, they get 1 lunch, I'm just trying to figure out.
Well, Bertha could talk to the
Coming through.
actual, how it's distributed, but yeah, it's for the,
Right,
anyone that shows
They
up.
can each get a lunch, and they can just, they basically eat what they want to eat, and then whatever they don't want, they can put in the goodie box.
We
So-
provide a little goodie box for their sake, or that's where it comes in.
No, it's like, we put like a plastic container for the items that the kids don't want to eat. So if there's a child in a stroller, and they're one,
But the mother can't just say, well, let me have 3 lunches
no, they're,
because my kids aren't feeling well or
No.
don't want to eat it.
no, they have to get in line to receive a lunch.
Mr. Kretz?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see there's a general fund component of this. Do we have to match in some way, or was it a miscalculation of how much we had to cover? Could we ask for the rest of it and receive it at a future time? How did that piece happen?
Yeah, just have to answer how the grant works.
To my knowledge, there's no negative impact on the department itself, on the city, because the grant actually pays for the staff. We hire staff that goes to monitor the program, and then also we augment with our summer camp staff. So the money is used to pay primarily the food component of it and the staffing costs that go to monitor the program.
Well, according to my notes, there's a general fund impact this year of $62,000 because the school week ran a week longer and the price of lunches is going up.
Is that?
Weeks longer or 1 week longer?
So, right, Councilman, so we're just trying to understand exactly what you're asking us. You're asking about the impact?
According to
or-
my notes, the projected expenses are $940,000 and the expected reimbursement is $878,000.
Right, that's correct.
So we're short $62,000, which we make up from the general fund.
Right, and so I think your question is, can we ask for that reimbursement?
Why does that happen? Do we have a way to avoid it in the
Well,
future?
I mean, I think you're right. We're serving for a week longer and the price of lunches went up. And yes, we can ask, but it's been difficult in the past. Do you want to answer that?
So, go ahead. The price of the lunch went up, was one component, and then the extension of the school summer was another week, so that also added to it. And then the third one was...
Right, so I think the point Sophia was trying to make also is that the general fund that they're talking about is Recreation and Parks General Fund, so it's really department funds that we're utilizing to continue to, to offset any costs that may not be completely covered by the grant. So there's no hit to the city's general fund.
So it's made up by existing resources within the department?
Correct. And so, in actuality, the choice that we've had to make in years where the grant has not completely funded all of the program is whether or not to do that or to cut services, and we've usually chosen not to cut services, so.
Is there some way to fill in the gap with grant funding? Do we
Well, we
not
always...
ask for an adequate amount, or if we knew this going in, and we asked for more, would they have provided it?
Do they have a cap? Do they have a cap on the grant dollar?
Well, we do ask for the full amount, and we have been over the years, the program has been reduced. We've actually we've actually done a lot of work to we've kind of retooled over the years the way we actually manage the program. So we have cut costs that way without actually cutting the food being delivered to children. So yes, we can ask, have we received the full amount? No. And the department has made up the balance.
And could we save more by doing competitive bids, or do we think LAUSD is already?
We actually, yes. I mean, we actually always continue to look at that. And when we were working with private vendors, not with LAUSD, we did rebid every year for the contract to try to make sure that we got the best price. With LAUSD, it's been a very good relationship, but we're also looking at that as well. There's a possibility that we may try to see if we can get a better price. It's always about looking at getting the best price and the highest quality food, so yes.
And so obviously we're getting good quality food with LAUSD.
Absolutely. LAUSD has a really high standard in terms of their dietary guidelines, and they also meet or exceed the city's healthy food policies as well. That's always something we have to look at.
And in that direction, do students have vegetarian or vegan options for lunches or no?
Well, actually, on Mondays, they do serve a no meat. It's like a no meat day, so they'll serve a vegetarian meal on Mondays.
But other days, no, or do they have a portion of it that's vegetarian or vegan?
Usually, it's just the Monday that they'll have like a no meat Monday. So.
But there's always a portion of the food. I mean, obviously, it's kind of a box lunch type of thing. So, but I've seen different types of vegetables, prepackaged. So, I mean, there's always a well-rounded component. If there's a part of the lunch that they don't particularly want to eat, they don't have to, and that's why we have those boxes where some kids put their vegetables and other kids may want the vegetables, so that's how it works.
Very good. Thank you.
And before I go to Mr., let me just say, I was at the kickoff last summer of this, and all of the food is individually it's packaged, if you will. But even that is environmentally friendly. So I think that is worth saying. So it's not like it's all protected, individualized, compartmentalized food items within this one box lunch. And the reason we partnered with LAUSD is to provide a seamless, uninterrupted process where they could go right from school to their local park the very next, the Monday following the Friday when school let out, to just continue their lunch program. I wanted to kind of insert that.
Right, and I noticed that you enjoyed your lunch that day when you ate a lot.
Wait, he doesn't qualify.
So he has firsthand experience. But I just wanted to say, yes, I think it's a good point to make, and Council Member, thank you for bringing that up. So it's interesting that studies have shown that through programs like this and the lunches that LAUSD serves are sometimes the most nutritious meal that the child might get all day in certain areas of the city, so in certain communities. So for them to be able to not lose that lunch program during the summer has been invaluable to some of these communities. So
it's come a long way since I was in public schools, let me tell you, as far as the quality of the food. Okay, Mr. Rue.
Great program, fully supported. Looking forward to seeing the list to see if there's any other parks in my district that could take advantage. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, any other comments, questions? And it looks like there are no public comment cards. Is that correct, Mr. Villanueva?
None.
All right, so we'll see the list of the existing facilities where these meals are being served.
How soon can we get that, Mr. Chairman?
I think we're going to get it today. Yeah, you're going to.
do you have it?
I apologize. This is 2014. There's actually 107, so there's additional. I'll provide this list to you today, and then we'll get you the updated list.
Terrific. Mm-hmm. Oh, sure. Mr. Rue.
Does the park require a facility? I mean, does it need to have a center, community center, in order to serve the lunches, or could it just be?
Normally we do, because the infrastructure of the staff at the facility helps to support the program. So the community is welcome to come, but because we have summer staff there at the center, and they're the ones that help to augment the program, then it's more useful when we do it at locations where we already have existing facilities and campers enrolled in programs so that we can maximize the number of summer lunches served.
So if there's no structure at the park, it's a small, mid-sized?
We don't do them at pocket parks, yeah.
Or larger than pocket parks?
It's not a requirement, like, it's not mandatory, but our practice is that we do it at actual buildings, at recreation centers or satellite facilities. So it doesn't mean it couldn't happen, but it's just not the way we normally do it.
All right, so without objection, I'd like to move the Board of Recreation and Parks report forward, and we look forward to seeing the list of parks where these lunches are currently being served. Seeing as there are no objections, this board report moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd like to go to item 2, please.
Item number 2, City Administrative Officer report relative to the amendment to lease agreement number 250 with the City of Glendale for an area located within Griffith Park Central Service Yard. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make note that this is a time limit file. Council has until August 28th to act.
Thank you. And we have Terry Sauer, who's going to give the update from the CAO's office, and
Sid Makarag.
Sid, good to see you again.
Thank you. Rec and Parks.
Please.
Mr. Chairman, what you have before you is a CAO report recommending a 10-year extension to the current agreement between the City, the Department of Recreation and Parks, and the City of Glendale for the remediation of toxic groundwater at Central Service Yard. The City of Glendale performs the maintenance, and the purpose is to mitigate the impact of 2 toxic plumes. The location of the wells required as part of the mitigation required by the EPA are located at the Central Service Yard. This will provide an additional 10-year extension. We are recommending or requesting that the Board of Recreation and Parks Commissioners also include language concerning the compensation. There is a compensation structure, and that's not specifically stated in the current agreement. We would recommend that you approve the current agreement.
Mr. McRae?
Yes, we agree with the recommendation of the CAO, and we propose to bring the issue back to our board at the next board meeting in August.
Thank you. And so this is a federally mandated arrangement, clearly. Can you describe the nature of the contamination? Is it on the City of Glendale, City of LA border?
I'm going to defer to the department. As I understand it, the EPA did identify 2 toxic plumes. There's a south and a north one, and they're sort of running between Griffith Park and the City of Glendale. I'm not an expert in this area, so I'm going to defer to the department to provide additional technical information.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I do have a little bit more information. What it is that there's a plume underneath, going underneath the city's Central Service Yard. It is part of a larger plume that also encompasses the City of Glendale. It is one of 2 Superfund sites that the EPA has identified in the San Fernando Valley. So one of the plans that the EPA had recommended was to go ahead and have a cleaning, a water recycling and cleaning site to mitigate the contamination of the groundwater at these sites. The groundwater actually provides drinking water to the City of Glendale and portions of the City of LA. And so the EPA had suggested, as Terry had mentioned earlier, that a good site for this monitoring wells was at CSY.
And is it contamination from the Rocketdyne?
Well, Rocketdyne is one of the contaminants. Mm-hmm. There were several lists. I don't know exactly the entire list, but Rocketdyne is, bless you, was one of the identified violators, yes.
This has been renewed every 10 years for how long?
The original lease was executed in 2000, so this is the first. This is the first extension.
Yes.
All right, and this is something that my staff did a little bit of deep digging and identified some concerns in terms of the immediate readoption of the existing agreement without some fine-tuning. And we feel it's a little more favorable to the city of Glendale than it is to the city of Los Angeles. And I know we've been working with Mike Scholl, so we would love to see some additional protections, if you will.
We've looked at it, and we totally agree with your staff's recommendation. One of the recommendations that we're bringing back to the board is to also amend the termination language. What we propose to do is, in addition to the city of Glendale having the right to terminate the agreement, we're also proposing a language that will include the city of LA, the lessor, as an additional party to be able to terminate this agreement if we see it.
Thank you, Mike Scholl.
Thank you, Mike Scholl, General Manager at Rec and Parks. I just wanted to clarify what Sid is saying as well. So when we'll be speaking with the city of Glendale about that, but I think all we want is the ability to be able to move or relocate. We're not. We will have them retain the rights to be there because it's such it's a federal EPA site. So I don't think our intent is to ever remove them, but we have monitoring wells and parks, all over the city, and they can be moved if needed be. So we're just proposing to add some language in there, and we're expecting that there shouldn't be any problem with doing that.
Sure, and one piece of the conversation, just in the immediate background, of course, is its adjacency to the Los Angeles River, and the fact that I have a study underway on the Central Service Yard for repurposing part of it as open space. So that's why I think it caught our attention. We want to make sure that every sort of precaution is taken to fully understand the implications of groundwater contamination next to these sensitive sites where we hope to have public use. So that's a huge consideration from my perspective.
Yeah, we believe we could put some language in there that protects everybody, and for whatever happens in the future, we'll have that ability. So I think we'll be okay.
Terrific. Colleagues, any questions or concerns? Mr. Kretz.
I'm not entirely sure, and there's not enough information on this to know exactly what this process is in terms of what we are physically doing, and whether we're taking some of the contamination and putting it in Griffith Park in some way, or is this any hazard to the city, and how's it work?
My understanding of the process is that these are actually just monitoring wells, and the city of Glendale is the one responsible for cleaning up all the contaminated groundwater. So they've actually already built a site to clean up all the groundwater, and so all the contaminated groundwater is directed to this particular site. They're cleaning it and they're redistributing it and to the city of Glendale for drinking water.
And I just add, it's not the contamination is there. It's not, nobody's doing anything to move it. It is what it is. I mean, it's in the groundwater. There's 2 extraction wells in CSY, so they're physically pumping the water out, the groundwater out, and sending it to the Glendale treatment plant, where it's being treated, and then reused. However, the plant is doing it. But I don't want anybody to be. There is no risk that's being resulted, to Griffith Park or anything else. It's under these plumes exist all over the city. This is a plume that's underneath that they're responsible for. We're not. They're just utilizing our property to get access to it, to monitor the health of the water as well as treat it.
Okay, so they're not pumping contaminated water into that area. It's treating water that's already there.
They're pumping it into a treatment plant, which is not on our property, which is Property Bureau Sanitation. But they're by no means would we ever permit that water to be. Yeah.
And is this part of the broader San Fernando Valley Aquifer, or is this another section?
I'm not sure on that. I'm not 100% sure on the tech. I mean, we can research that for that, Councilman, and when we come back have that answer. I don't know that today.
So I know we're trying to do other things to treat other places in that aquifer. So
yeah.
So sometimes when you take contaminated groundwater out of one area, it can spread the plume due to water rushing into where the water is taken out of. Are you aware of that problem, and are we mitigating that in some way?
I'm not aware of that problem. The only kind of solace I find in this is that I know this is being regulated by the Federal Environmental Protection Agency, so I mean, we rely on them quite. They a lot of times set the standards for which whether it's us or somebody else, that we follow. But I'm not aware of that being an issue. These things are really watched very, very closely by the EPA and others, and the Water Quality Control Board and others that oversee these items. I mean, we've gone through in different parks and had similar situations where we have, whether we purchase the piece of property that has contaminated groundwater or else, but there are federally approved and state approved ways to do it, and it's pretty, I mean, it might not be standard to each site, but the process for which you get that approval is standardized.
Mr. Rue.
Quick question. How did the rental amount get calculated?
There was an appraisal done back in the late 90s before as part of the agreement. It considered the square footage of the extraction well sites as well as the other equipment that Glendale needed to access through under Central Service Yard, and that's how that was done.
In the 90s?
Late 90s, yeah.
Do we need a reassessment or?
No, there's it's adjusted every 5 years based on the CPI. And they use the LA Riverside Orange County CPI.
So the value for parklands is different than, I guess, residential, right? Because real estate prices are going up, so maybe we could. I don't know. Does it get adjusted? I mean, I don't know how you value the parklands, but does it go up in property value as well? And can we charge a little more rent?
From an appraisal standpoint, I think the standards for appraising open space zone property is different from residential or commercial property, so it may not necessarily be the same. I think the basis for the appraisal is the loss of use, and I think that was the basis. I believe that was the basis of the original appraisal when it was done for this site.
As long as we're getting our fair value for it.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Mr. Blumenfield.
And first I wanted to follow up on the question you were asking about the LA River. You were asking about the particular properties, but does the lease extension have any effect on the LA River master plan in any way?
Not that I'm aware of, council member. You would need the lease in place and the remediation, and any master plan as it relates to the river would take into account that this particular piece of property is theirs.
And I think that Councilmember Mike Scholl, I think that's partly why we want to amend it slightly, is that if there ever was a conflict, that we would have every right to have them relocate the wells within the property, but just to move them out of the way. And the piping that connects the extraction wells to the treatment plant, they're actually on the property line right now, so it's not likely that there'd be any conflict, but as a safeguard, that's the reason why we want to do a slight amendment to the agreement, just to make sure that we're protected, the city is protected, should anything happen with the...
So imagine if something, given the water bond that, passed last year in the state, and that all that money is starting to now flow, we should be seeing a lot more money spent on groundwater cleanup, $7 billion bond. So it is important, I guess, at this point, and hopefully more will be happening for all of our sakes in the groundwater, because of that money.
That's right.
And so that they should be wanting to do something more with it. Although I guess it's just a monitoring place at this point, right?
Except for they do have a couple of extraction wells.
But I would imagine they might since there is more money, they might beef that up. But
you're probably true.
Do they list anything about the progress to date of their cleanup, and has there been major progress?
I don't know.
I don't know what, I mean, it's not our, we can ask them to provide a status update as part of our report back to this committee. If not a problem at all.
Be nice to know that it's actually doing something.
Yeah, we'll request that.
I think that's a good point, Mr. Blumenfield. I think you've enlarged the context because we certainly have plumes from the Rocketdyne Superfund site that are within the city limits in the San Fernando Valley. So some of that water bond money can certainly and will likely be used for some remediation there, I would think. So it's a much larger conversation. We have the probably good fortune of the city of Glendale being responsible for these particular plumes. So what I'm going to, oh, Mr. Price, any questions? What I'm going to recommend is, since there are the outstanding questions that my office brought up and that you have some questions here amongst the colleagues, that we'll continue to work with Rec and Parks on getting a greater articulation of the agreement before we re-adopt it. What I'd also like to do is just tag along that with when you come back, and we'll do this in 2 weeks so that we can meet that deadline, come back with some information in relation to the Valley Aquifer vis-a-vis the question that Mr. Koretz raised. Just some factual information, how it relates, would be terrific. Mr. Joel?
Can we ask, I would request that as part of that report back, that the Bureau of Sanitation provides that. That's way out of our jurisdiction,
Okay.
way out of our I mean, we're not involved in that at all.
Good point.
It's not what we do.
So we'll request that of the Bureau of Sanitation as well. And chances are, they have that information readily available, so that should not send them off into a whole new research area.
And it might even be water and power, I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
It's, but I would not want to try to translate information that's not within our technical.
So I will articulate that to include the necessary agencies and/or departments to report back on, the Valley Aquifer piece. And along with that, the risk of any spread, which could include the city of Glendale. So that might be something that you can inquire just of the city of Glendale in terms of just to address that, since they're the ones who are monitoring and then running the water through the filtration. Is that clear enough? Okay, terrific. So with that, yes, sir.
Based on what Councilman Blumenfeld said, do you need it, or do we even have to, after it gets cleaned up? I know the city of Glendale built some wells. Do you need some language in the lease to have them clean the wells up or take away the wells, or responsible once the cleanup is completely done? Does the lease have that language?
We'll make sure it should be in there, but if it's not, we'll make sure that that's in there.
Good point. Maybe in the next 10 years, we won't need to renew it because there'll be enough remediation. That would be the best of all worlds. But this is a long-term commitment.
It usually takes a long time.
Yeah, these Superfund sites are, really intense. So, all right. Well, thank you. So, without further comment, colleagues, then we will keep this open and for a report back within 2 weeks on the aforementioned requests. Without objection, and seeing as there's no objection, we will do just that. Thank you so much. And now I'd like to go to item 4.
Item number 4, City Attorney Report and Ordinance relative to amending the Los Angeles Municipal Code, adding Alma Park to the list of city parks identified as being closed at sunset and open at sunrise.
Thank you. Mr. Regan.
Thank you, council members. Kevin Regan, Assistant General Manager with Recreation and Parks. This is a park in the San Pedro area. It's a pocket park. It's essentially, currently the operating hours are the normal operating hours, which are 5 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. per municipal code. There's a desire on part of the community and the council member to change the hours of this particular park to help curtail some activities, some negative activities, graffiti, and some late-night people in the park and things like that. So just a real quick refresher on the park hours. So the hours for all parks and recreation centers are set by the municipal code. They're under the jurisdiction of the Board of Recreation and Parks Commissioners, but the council has to do these amendments to the municipal code. The way the code works is that all parks in the city of Los Angeles are open from 5 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. unless otherwise stated in the...
5:30 for the hours again?
It's actually, it's,
Sorry,
with all the
sure.
city attorney, it's 5 a.m.
Yeah, didn't I say 5?
You said 5:30.
Oh, I'm sorry. Correction, I misspoke. It's 5 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. unless otherwise stated in the code. And so there's sections of the code, of the municipal code, that have some specific hours. Some parks have very specific hours. They'll close like 1 hour after sunset. And then there's other sections that are kind of like a sunrise to sunset section. So this park is being asked to be closed at sunset and open at sunrise.
All right, thank you. And so this Alma Park is in San Pedro. This is a request from our colleague Joe Buscaino, and it was heard the first time some months ago when he was on this committee. Mr. Price.
Yeah, it's a quick question. Is this a park with a gate on it so that it's locked off, or it's...
No, it's a kind of a...
That sort of illuminates, or no? So it's sort of,
there's no gate, so it's kind of an open, like a pocket park.
that's why I want to close it.
Well, actually, the most parks they're open, like just like you could walk in, but with these specific operating hours, then what it really does is allows the police an enforcement tool in case there's, activities in there that...
Some pocket parks do have
Correct.
gates. They have their gates and their accesses.
As we're moving forward, park design has changed over the years. The older parks typically are just very open. Newer parks typically, and some parks that have been retrofitted, do have gates so they can be secured. This one doesn't.
Kevin, has the city attorney's office done any analysis at all in terms of the impact on crime in relation to park openings and closings, to your knowledge?
Not that I know of any particular analysis that has been done. The police department obviously has statistics. I think typically what happens with these park hours is that community members just feel better if they know that let's just say that a park starts to have a particular problem after, before the normal closing hours, but after sunset, let's say. Typically, the communities just feel better if they know that the police could actually go in and address the problem. I mean, the police can always go in and try to address the problem of, you're graffitiing, I caught you, or you're smoking marijuana or doing whatever. That's not really the problem. The problem is the police, they're very, their call volume is very high. They don't have a lot of time to just sit there and wait for someone doing something wrong. So if the police roll up to a park and they have the ability to tell everyone to get out because it's closed, then that's kind of a deterrent. That's sort of how it works.
It's a real gray area because we have our big regional parks, then we have our sort of iconic parks like MacArthur Park and Lincoln Park and Echo Park that are wide open. And we know that, I know in Echo Park, people walk around there at midnight because they're exercising, but that's probably not necessarily legal. But I wouldn't want to necessarily stop that either. But so there's this gray area in terms of parks opening and closing and adequate posting and everything else. That's not what we're hearing today on this item, and I know that. But I was just, it sort of makes me curious in terms of public safety and the numbers of incidents at parks, when they're not technically open and when they are. I just think it would be interesting to see some of those statistics. Just thinking aloud.
Yeah. I agree with you, and I think that I go back to just, based on experience, just in all the years of dealing with this and with the police department, I think the operating hours more than anything, sometimes these types of hours are referred to as a curfew, and they're operating hours, so the parks are open and then they close. The normal time at 10:30 works for most parks. Sometimes it doesn't. And so when it doesn't, it's good to have options. The department and the commission developed this sunrise to sunset section years ago when we started to realize that some parks needed to close earlier than the normal stated 10:30 p.m. And so what I believe is that while it's not like there's a security guard there and a gate closing and everything's locked and it's, walled off. It's not like that. It just gives the police a tool they can use to go in. Sometimes police need something to approach people. For example, you see someone who might be doing something suspicious, but yet the police may not have that full probable cause to go. But if the park's closed and the person's in there, then that gives the police the ability to go in and do a search or whatever they have to do because the person has now violated the municipal code. So it's kind of the idea of helping to protect the community. The police only use it where they need it. It's not like like everyone's raiding every park and kicking everyone out. It doesn't really happen. In places where we need to be cautious of the hours, we are. As an example, in Griffith Park or even in Runyon Canyon, where people after hours cause a lot of problems, including dangers of fires, et cetera, the rangers will make a sweep and get everyone out. And if people in there afterwards, they can be addressed.
Thank you. Any comments or? Yeah, Mr. Blumenfield.
Do rangers go in this park as well, or are you just talking about?
No, rangers are really currently, we have a very few rangers right now. We're trying to rebuild the program, but currently our rangers are really only deployed in Griffith Park, and sometimes they'll go just in that general area. They can deploy, and the general manager does use the rangers to do special assignments, but they wouldn't go to this park routinely. It would be the police.
Primarily is the tool for LAPD.
Correct. So I think it's important to realize LAPD is the primary law enforcement agency for parks throughout the city, and the rangers really are just kind of an augment that deployment.
Thank you. Mr. Kretz.
So just to clarify, this won't be necessarily a daily thing that gets enforced. It really is just adding another tool for LAPD when they need to take a closer look at other things.
I believe that's the case, Councilman, and I think that, just typically what I've seen in these types of cases is that early on when the hours are changed, the police will do their best to make contact with individuals and maybe there afterwards and do some education, and then if they continue to have problems, they'll address it as needed. Typically, these things are driven by community complaints, et cetera.
Thank you. Well, more conversation in terms of park openings and closings for another day, certainly. But at this time, I'd like to support the community in San Pedro who organized around this specific ordinance just for Alma Park, and our colleague Joe Buscaino to support this ordinance. That's what I would recommend. And seeing as there are no public comments, I would recommend that we approve the city attorney report and ordinance without objection. Seeing as there's no objection, the item carries, and I believe that was the last item on our agenda, and this committee is adjourned, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you.